I have never accumulated this many books in this short amount of time, with the exception of my 10th birthday. My parents got me the whole collection of Nancy Drew. Best day of my life. So I read a lot as a kid, and my goal was, as soon as I found out it was a thing, when I grew up, I wanted to have 1,000 books because then I could call myself a library. But having 1,000 random books would mean nothing to me, which is why when I was younger, I would, buy books at garage sales or like at half-price books. And if I didn't like the book, I would get rid of it, because why would I keep a book that I didn't like? I've always been this way. I've always been big into, curating my collection of books. So since I've been, collecting and curating books literally since I first started learning how to read, I'd like to share my thoughts on book curation, how I think about curating my collection. I want to do a book declutter and show you my 100 plus books book haul. You saw they're primarily small books, but they're still books. The light is going to be coming in and out, so sorry about that in advance. I guess I'll start with the books I bought yesterday. I was thrifting with my mom, and I was talking about how I'm looking for cookbooks because I keep finding AI recipes. Connor and I have made AI recipes, and they've turned out really bad. And I've always been like I'm not gonna buy a cookbook because I can just find, recipes online, and that's still true. But now I have a pretty good reason to start buying cookbooks, because whenever that happens, whenever we make a recipe that's not good, it's incredibly annoying. And I was telling my mom, I'm on the look for this vegetarian cookbook from the 70s. It's called Moosewood. Not even a minute later, I look down. I think the author did her own illustrations on every page, and it's so cute. I'm gonna have to show you some of the illustrations in this book because it's absolutely adorable. But I was so excited. I snatched this off the shelf. I'm looking through it. I'm like, oh my gosh, Mom, I can't believe I found it. And she was like, look what I found. It's the author's other cookbook. I scored big time. They were also each $1.99. They look like they've never been used. This one is The Enchanted Broccoli Forest and Other Timeless Delicacies. Staying with cookbooks, this was a Christmas gift. Flour, water, salt, yeast. Whenever people are like, what do you want for Christmas? I have just been sending them a link to my Goodreads want to read list. Pick anything off there. I have hundreds of books. Another book I was gifted from my want to read list is The Light Eaters: How the Unseen World of Plant Intelligence Offers a New Understanding of Life on Earth. It was a New York Times bestseller, and it sounds very interesting. So for Christmas, I got my mom Devotions by Mary Oliver, and I checked that book out from the library maybe a year or two ago, and I wasn't able to get through it in the time I needed to return it, so I bought myself a copy as well. Something I really like about this book is the floppiness of it. Nice flop. So I have a book. It was written by some people who write a newsletter that I really like. I pre-ordered this. Create, Repeat, 365 Days of Creativity. I am not gonna lie, I was a little disappointed when I opened this up because it's little paragraphs and then a little challenge at the end, almost like a journal prompt. Next up, I bought the Penguin Little Modern Classics. I was actually able to find this not used, it was new, but it was slightly damaged. So I was able to get it on sale, which is great. This is the box set. So I'm not gonna sit here and go through each book, but instead I'm just going to show you some of the books I'm really excited to read. The reason I did get this is because I wanted to expand the topics that I'm reading, expand the authors that I'm reading. And it's just a fun way to know if you like an author's writing style or not. So out of these, I am excited to read Notes on Camp, The Veiled Woman, Notes on Nationalism, Investigations of a Dog, and I'll read the little, the blurb about it. How does a dog see the world? How do any of us? In this playful, enigmatic story of a canine philosopher, Kafka explores the limits of knowledge. Create Dangerously and The Distance of the Moon. These exuberant, endlessly innovative stories interweave scientific fact with wordplay, whimsy, and cosmic flights of fancy in a strange and wondrous universe. It sounds fun. It sounds like a fun read. Oh, there were 50 of those Penguin Modern Classics, and I got 80 of the Penguin Little Black Classics. Same type of thing. This was a box set and it was damaged, so I got it on sale. I think I got it for $50. Same thing. I'll just talk about some that I'm really excited to read, but I'm excited to read all of these. I did read Jane Austen's Beautiful Cassandra. I haven't read any Jane Austen, and I know people say like, oh, this was like her early works, I think, just stuff that wasn't intended for people to read, but I wasn't a fan, sadly. Oh, I'm currently reading this one, The Life of a Stupid Man. I read the first little short story in this. It was actually really funny. I don't think it was meant to be, though. Okay, honestly, I'm excited to read like all of these, but I'll just talk about these ones. There is The Yellow Wallpaper. Oh, this is The Nose. Russia's great 19th century satirical absurdist shows what happens when a man wakes up with his nose missing. Mozart's My Dearest Father, and Goblin Market. So what I think I'm going to do before I put these up on the shelf and try to organize them, I think I'm going to actually declutter first. Just take any books down that I don't want. And what I think I might do is turn books around that I've already read, just to get a visual of how many books I have that I haven't read yet. So when it comes to curating my collection of books, a big part of that is the shelves are never stagnant. I'm always going through my books, making sure that I want to keep stuff, making sure that if I haven't read a book, that it's going to be read. And if it's not, consider getting rid of it. I really think reading books and buying books are two different hobbies, and it's completely fine to do either or both. I don't think one is necessarily better than another, but I definitely lean on the reading as a hobby instead of buying books as a hobby. However, I do like to do both, but that is why I usually get books from the library. Almost always. 90% of the books that I've read have been from the library. And I read a lot as a kid, so I can say that pretty confidently. I kind of have a criteria for buying my books. First is if I want to read it and the library doesn't have it, I can buy it. If I'm going to have the book longer than the library would allow me to, or if I need to like annotate it or something. I will also buy a book if I've read it and I know I want to go back to it. Also buy books if there's like a series that I really love and I have a few books in the series, but not all of them. Sometimes I will like complete the series. I also buy books if they kind of fit the criteria of, oh, I'm bored, let me go to the bookshelf and pick out something to read. There's some books that are not going to fit that criteria at all. For example, The Light Eaters, that is not going to be a book that I'm just going to be like, I feel like reading. Here, I'm going to pick that one. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to pick up, these tiny little books. These are perfect for that. I'll buy books if they are cheap at a used bookstore or a thrift store and they just really fit my interests. There were these articles that I read that I really, really liked, both from Psyche the Meg, How to Nurture a Personal Library, and How to Curate Just About Anything. And from How to Nurture and Grow a Personal Library of Books, in the case of your personal library, it serves a community of one. You, and you are the reader and the librarian. This means your library won't look the same as anyone else's. Okay, there's a few things about that I really, really love. One, your library won't look the same as anyone else's. I like that somebody can look at my library and see like different interests that I have or things that I enjoy. It's kind of the same thing as like stalking someone's Pinterest. And I also really liked you are both the reader and the librarian. And I think that's a really nice way to think of approaching curating a collection. You're choosing what to keep out and what goes in storage. You're choosing how to display the books. I have maybe half of my books up here. The other half are in the basement, stored away. They are like my childhood favorites. There's a lot of like my Nancy Drew books are in the basement. I honestly don't know if I'll ever read them again. So they're in the basement. They don't need to be out. However, I did go through them recently because I had to like move them into tubs that were a bit more resistant to stuff. They were in like a cardboard box before, so I wanted to put them in like plastic tubs. And I went through and I decluttered. I'll be able to add up the total amount of books I own after I declutter the bookshelf. It was really cool to see what I haven't read by flipping the books around, but I hated how that looked, so I had to flip them right back, and then I like reorganized a little bit. So these are what I am getting rid of. Let's do an unhaul, a not haul, whatever it's called. So this stack is from when I was organizing the books that I have stored away. A lot of these are duplicates, so I'm getting rid of 2 of the Nancy Drew The Bungalow Mystery, The Mystery at Lilac Inn, Secret of Shadow Ranch, Clue in the Diary, The Whispering Statue, Secret of the Forgotten City. Gonna get rid of those. I did get rid of most duplicates, except I do have some like library specific edition books that are duplicates, and I do want to keep those. This is also a duplicate. This is the unauthorized biography, Lemony Snicket. I got this during COVID, during lockdown. 14,000 things to be happy about. If you asked ChatGPT to write this is exactly what it would be. I also really liked Allie Carter's The Heist Society books, and I was trying to get into Embassy Row, which was her other series, her newer series, but I just didn't like this series. This one's gonna go. Everything. It was fine. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I do have all the dust covers for these. I'm going to go get those, but Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, never read it. I don't plan on reading it. It doesn't sound interesting to me. Predatory Thinking, if you watched one of my personal curriculum videos, you know how much I hated this book. Idea Flow, this was another one of those like nonfiction, like business books. Kind of sucked. I have 2 from the Do series. It felt kind of like bad blog posts. This book was okay. This was Superfans by Pat Flynn. I think it was a decent book. It's just none of the information was necessarily new, but he did a good job of reframing stuff. But I'm never going to read it again. So Mrs. Dalloway, hated it. I have 2 Hardy Boy books, House on the Cliff and The Tower Treasure. I've never read these. I think I tried reading it. Yeah, I wasn't a fan, but I did hang on to them because they were really old. 1927. Wow, next year, these books are going to be 100 years old. Great Big Beautiful Life, Emily Henry. Yeah, I didn't like this at all. Okay, I'm getting rid of 21 books. After I get rid of these, I'm going to have 361 books, and I counted how many books I have not read. 44% of my books are unread. No. Oh, that's horrible. Okay. Okay, my goal originally was to try to keep my collection to about 5% unread. I think that's going to be kind of difficult. So I think if I can get this down to 10% unread, I'll be happy. Maybe I can aim for that like by the end of the year. That basically means I could have 36 unread books. I need to read 124 books this year. Okay, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think in general, moving forward, I never loved having a ton of unread books in my collection. You know, I was always trying to get that number down to as low as possible. And I think moving forward, having like some sort of percentage makes a lot of sense because as I buy more books, I can have more unread books instead of saying, you know, I only want to have 10 unread books in my collection. Well, once we're talking about like 1,000 books, that is it would be insane to have read 990 of all of those books. No, it's not really, but you know what I mean. It makes sense to have like a percentage. I think 10% is good. I think if you are looking to have a book collection or just like curate your home library, having a percentage of books that you want to be unread could be a nice thing just to kind of pace yourself while you're buying, if you are the type that likes to buy books, because it is so easy. Because just in like the 2 months that I accumulated like over 100 books, like it just happened so fast. I could see like if you really enjoy buying books, how that could just get like out of control. So my plan for these is probably to take them to Half Price Books and then get maybe some in-store credit there to buy more books. But after I get my collection down a little bit, I feel embarrassed. And I don't know, if I don't get around to taking these to Half Price Books, or they don't want to give me like any money for them, there's a bunch of little free libraries where I live. So this summer I might go drop these off, especially like the fiction books I think would do really well in those, you know, the Nancy Drews and stuff. And those are my thoughts on curating your book collection. Oh my gosh, I can't believe 44%. Okay, I'm gonna go. That is it for today's video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.